Alright, so our new unit, chapitre 5.1, has to do with our leisure activities, so we're going to start with some sports and activities. So hopefully you remember our verb to play. We already saw this last semester. So our base infinitive for most of our sports is going to be jouer. From here, all we have to do is we have to add on the name of the sport after it. This is the exact same thing we do in English. So we don't say I basketball, we say I play basketball. Exact same concept in French. Most of these are cognates. So to be able to say, for example, to play hockey, we would say jouer au hockey. Pretty simple. The hardest thing about cognates is simply remembering to say them with the accent. You can't say jouer au hockey. That doesn't make any sense. The sentence doesn't flow anymore. Remember, we don't pronounce H's at the beginnings of words, which will help out a lot with hockey. But as you keep going in your sentence, just make sure that you're keeping up that flow. And with a little bit of practice, you won't even have to think about it anymore. Jouer au hockey. To play tennis, similar issue, jouer au tennis. In this case, we do actually pronounce that S at the end of tennis, simply because it's a borrowed word. They imported it from English, and so it doesn't necessarily follow the exact same rules as most of our normal French words. So we do say jouer au tennis. To play basketball is one that we've seen before, jouer au basket. In French, you're actually not required to say the ball on the end of any of our sports, though you can if you want to. Jouer au basket and jouer au basketball are the exact same thing. Just be aware that if you're looking at, in this case, jouer au basket, if you get confused, just throw a ball on the end of it and it should make sense. They're almost all cognates. Same thing with volleyball. Typically we say jouer au volley. Okay. You could throw a ball onto the end of it if you really wanted to. This one you hardly ever see it without the ball at all. It's typically just volley, and that's it. However, we do have another verb that we sometimes use with particular sports where we don't necessarily play that sport, but it's something that we do. So all of these, as we can see even in English, we play hockey, we play tennis. There are other sports such as skiing. We don't say, I play skiing. In English, we often use the word go, but in French, we're going to use the verb to do, which is faire. Faire actually has two translations. It's both to do and it's to make. Though, of course, in the context of sports, we're almost always going to translate it as do. So while in English we would say that we're going skiing, in French, you do skiing. Faire du ski. It's pretty simple. Most of these are also cognates, but since we don't have the verb to play at the beginning, they're all going to be based off of faire instead. To go ice skating, same deal. We don't play ice skating, we do ice skating. Faire du patin à glace. So a patin is the actual skate itself, okay, that thin blade that you stick on your foot, and glace means ice. Okay, so faire du patin à glace. So literally to do skating on ice. To go surfing, simple, faire du surf. Remember that F is in fact a careful letter, that's C, R, F, and L. Those four letters we say at the end of words. So we do say faire du surf. You do hear the F on the end of that word as well. To go cycling, to go biking, to ride a bike around, faire du vélo. This is one of the few that's not an actual cognate, simply because biking is a very, very common mode of transportation in France. A lot of people, especially in big cities, don't own cars. There's not a need for it. They have a really good bus system. A lot of cities have really good subway systems. If you have somewhere else to go, almost everyone goes on a bike. So they have their own word for it, vélo, faire du vélo. To go jogging, we do actually have a word for to run, which is completely separate and doesn't follow this pattern at all. But to specifically say to go jogging, then we're going to faire du jogging, pretty easy. And to do aerobics, so to do like an aerobics class that might be offered at like a gym or something like that, faire de l'aérobic. Note that here we've suddenly changed genders. All of the verbs that we've seen up before this were masculine. We have that du in between them. Aerobic is a feminine word, and it begins with an A, so we have to use our de and our L apostrophe. So we go from faire du to faire de l'aérobic. To do track and field, okay, so any of our track and field events all together. Faire de l'athlétisme. That's actually a much easier word than it sounds like. Remember that a TH in French is going to be pronounced like a regular T. And remember that an E with the accent aigu going up makes an A sound. L'athlétisme. Faire de l'athlétisme. And finally, to skate, this would be skating like on a skateboard or inline skates, that sort of thing. Simple, faire du skate. For our activities, most of them will also use faire, because now these are things that we do, but we often say we do in English, or they could be things that we straight up make. So if we're making something, we're also going to use faire. So to do photography, we don't really have a great verb for this in English. It is not the same thing as to take photos. That is a completely separate verb that we'll actually look at later on in this semester. But if someone's like, oh yeah, I really like to do photography stuff, then they like to faire de la photo. Note again that photo is feminine. De la photo. To make videos, we can say this one of two ways. The more common way is just faire de la vidéo. Vidéo. Remember that an accent means that we have to pronounce that vowel separately from the vowels next to it. So we can't smash together our E and our O. We're going to pronounce them as two different syllables. Vidéo. Faire de la vidéo. Or you can faire de la vidéo amateur if it's really important for you, for whatever reason, to point out that you're not a professional. To do theater or to do drama, like if you like to do the play or performance class, something like that, drama club. Faire du théâtre. Faire du théâtre. Remember, our TH is still pronounced like a regular T. An E accent aigu says A. And those two accents means that that's where we have to split our syllables. Théâtre. Théâtre. And then finally, to play video games. This is our only activity where we are playing. So we're going to go back to the verb jouer. Now, your book claims that this should be jouer à des jeux vidéo. Jouer à des jeux vidéo. So, jeux, the J-E-U-X there, simply means games. It's our noun form based off of the same verb, jouer. So you can hear they're extremely similar. Jouer, to play. Jeu, a game. Honestly, I've never in my life heard anyone say jouer à des jeux vidéo. And after checking with several sources, the correct way to say to play video games is the second one listed there. Jouer aux jeux vidéo. It's a very small difference, but that's the one that everyone else besides your book agrees with. you should recognize the first one because, again, remember our final exam and all of that, they are drawn directly from the book. So you could possibly see the phrase jouer à des jeux vidéo popping up since that is the way that your book uses it. But outside of that, the entire rest of the French speaking world says au, jouer aux jeux vidéo. So that's the one that I really want you to focus on learning.